I was reading, I was just logged on to my homepage to log on to the internet, and I happened along to this article called "The 30 Greatest Living American Songwriters," according to the New York Times Magazine, and I thought I would do a quick reaction video to this. I was very surprised at some of these choices because a lot of these choices I hadn't heard of. Of course, the majority of these choices are from like not my preferred decade of music, but some of them are. And some of these choices sh- some of these choices should have been higher than others, or higher in the list than others. The first one was Nile Rodgers of Chic. Now, I agree with that one. He is quite good. The second one is Lucinda Williams. I'm um, not a huge or not a Lucinda Williams fan by any stretch. Her voice kind of just gets gets on my nerves. The only the only um, the only time that I sort of saw her live was when she opened for Neil Young and Crazy Horse in 2003 when I met Neil Young and Crazy Horse, but luckily I was backstage with everybody, so I missed her set. But I've never, like I said, I've never really been a fan of hers, um, her voice. I'm sure she's a good songwriter, but I've never really been a fan of her vocals. Now, Stevie Wonder is one of those ones that I felt should have been much higher on the list than he was, and because he is a tremendous songwriter and singer. Um, and by the way, we only have one Stevie Wonder video on the channel, Stevie Wonder review on the channel. His We did a song review of his version of um, "Blowing in the Wind" a couple years ago, which happens to be my favorite cover version of that song. Now, Jay-Z is another example of somebody that shouldn't be on this list because I don't really consider rappers songwriters. They're more poets, if you can call them that. Now, Paul Simon was another case of I think he should have been higher on the list than he was. Um, maybe third or fourth on the list. Now, I have no opinion of Taylor Swift because I don't listen to her stuff. The only tidbit I know about her is that she was named after James Taylor. Now, this this next one, Brian and Eddie Holland, was a crime because I think they should have been at least number one and two on the list because they are two of the greatest Motown songwriters to ever write a song. They were 2/3 of the Holland Dozier Holland writing team. Now, Missy Elliott is another case of she should not be considered a songwriter, more of a poet. Lionel Richie, I would agree with. Um, he is a good songwriter. Now, Dolly Parton is one of the greatest country songwriters that ever existed. Again, I think she should have been higher on the list than she is. Now, this I've never heard of, so I have no reaction. Young Thug. Now, Diane Warren, um, apart from the fact that she's never won an Oscar, which is a crime, she's been nominated about 16,000 times, but she's never won one. This is another case of I think she should have been higher on the list than she is because she's written some great songs. Case in point, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing from Armageddon that Aerosmith covered. Um, I've never heard of Josh Osborne. I've heard of Brandy Clark, I think. So I really have no opinion of these. Now, Fiona Apple, I was kind of surprised to find her on the list because I don't hear much of her anymore. Um, Now, Babyface, um, I would agree that he is a good songwriter. Case in point, he co-wrote "Change the World" with Eric Clapton in it, and that has always been one of my favorite songs of Eric's and Babyface's. And he's more of an R&B. I would class him in R&B rather than rap. And this is another case of I've never heard of this guy. And I've never heard of him either, so I have no opinion. And this next one is truly a crime. Carole King should be number one on this list. She is probably the greatest songwriter that ever existed. Now, Outkast, I've made my feelings clear about how I feel about Outkast in our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame reactions that we've done in the past. I think they should be classified as poets and not songwriters, and I'm being diplomatic when I say that. Now, I have I am of two minds when it comes to Mariah Carey. I used to be I am somewhat of a Mariah Carey fan, but I think I think her stuff now that she puts out is not as good as her early stuff. Um, so I really don't have um, I really don't have um, a lot to say about Mariah because I think they're judging. The New York Times magazine is judging on what she has put out in the past, put out nowadays, and I don't really listen to her newer stuff. Actually, the last time I really listened to Mariah was when she uh, was part of Divas Live '98, back in '98. Now, as you guys well know, I'm a huge Willie Nelson fan, and I think he should be at least number two on the list, just ahead of Carol at number one. Kendrick Lamar, I have no opinion of. Valerie Simpson should be higher on the list than she is because she is a tremendous. She's part of Ashford and Simpson, and she is a good songwriter. Now, actually, Bob Dylan should be number two, and Willie should be number three. So Bob should just be right after Carol. And I have no opinion of this person, nor this person, because I have no idea who he is. Um, and this is another case of I think they would be better poets. I would classify them as poets and not songwriters. No opinion of Bad Bunny either. And Bruce Springsteen is certainly a great songwriter, and I think he should be higher on the list than he is. And Smokey Robinson, I was really surprised um, he was not higher on the list than he is. I think he should be number four. And that's the end of the article. And I'm gonna tell you some other songwriters that didn't make the cut that I think is a crime that they weren't on the list. Neil Young, for example, and James Taylor, and um, and I was really surprised Lennon and McCartney weren't on the list either. Um, I was really surprised Paul McCartney wasn't on the list. So those are really the only three songwriters that that I was really taken aback by the fact that they weren't on the list. And I'm going to put a link up in the description, or I'm going to put a link in the description to this article if you want to check it out. It's uh, published, or it was in the New York Times magazine.